Have you ever seen a game with 32 pieces on the board until move 30? You will see it now. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the 7th round of the Sinquefield Cup. Going to this round, Alireza was leading the tournament with 4 points out of 6, taking on the current world chess champion Ding Liren, who drawn all of his games until here, and he had 3 points out of 6 rounds. Their face-to-face overall favors Alireza hugely with 3 wins in classical and 5 draws, no losses. Ding Liren is 31-year-old and world number 15. Let's see what happens if Alireza can extend even more his lead. 2 hours for both players plus 30 seconds. Let's jump right into the action. Alireza had the white pieces and he started with the pawn to e4. Ding Liren, as usual, he played pawn to e5. Knight f3 by Alireza, knight c6, and we have the classic Italian. Alireza used this opening with huge success recently. He beat Anish Giri also earlier in this tournament as well with this move. And Ding played knight to f6, attacking the pawn. Alireza guards it, no interest in fried liver or 2 knights opening. Bishop to c5, and in this position you have a lot of moves. Knight d2, c3, h3, castle, a4, bishop g5. Against Anish, Alireza chose castle, and in this game he decided to go c3, controlling d4 and going for b4 ideas. In this position, Ding activates his bishop and Alireza goes pawn to a4. He prepped up this opening against Ding and he wanted to risk in the opening, as I will show you why. And he was going for some dubious lines for white, which recently with modern computers got very popular. a4, we want to chase this bishop, trap it hopefully, and black has 2 ways to save this bishop. a5 stops all the pawn marches. Alireza plays bishop to g5. This is a very modern move. You can play it earlier as well, and the idea is provoke black to push pawns on the king side, and we get a very interesting game. Nowadays, if you want to really work on winning and really try hard to win, you can try this bishop g5. Traditionally they say it was not good because the king is not castled and he can just play h6 g5, and bishop g5 is not good, but nowadays it's just working out very well. So h6, very natural move. Whenever a piece comes to your territory, ask question of it. Bishop h4, and in this position, Ding played queen e7. Earlier this year, in January, in Tata Steel, Gukesh played same line against Ding Liren, and Ding played bishop a7 here against Gukesh, and their game continued like this. So you can see this knight can come to b5 as well when the pawn is on a5, and g5 and opposite side castled kings, and actually Ding managed to beat Gukesh with the black pieces in this position. But in this game he decided to start with queen e7, and in that same tournament he played the same move against Parham Maghsoodlu as well. So after but in this position he played bishop to a7 against Parham, and after knight d2, bishop d7, rook b1, g5, bishop g3, castle, rook e1, g4, Parham played bishop h4, and he got a very good position, +1 kind of, but the game ended in a draw. But against Alireza he started with g5 rather than bishop a7, which is a very common move as well. I mean, you can alternate all of these moves: bishop d7, bishop a7, bishop g4. And in this position, after bishop g3, Ding played bishop g4. It's a more rare move rather than, I mean, bishop a7 is more common, bishop d7 is more common. Giri played bishop d7 against Alireza in one of the online games, and okay, rook g8, it was not a very good move. It was better to come back to e7 because it's always about d4. In a lot of these lines in these positions, white wants d4, 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 and black should control this square. If you give white some little chance, I can sometimes sack and e5, queen b3, opening the king, stuff like that. It's very dynamic opening. It looks symmetrical, but black should really be careful about this d4. For example, rook g8 by Anish a couple of years ago, it led to a very good position for Alireza. And so after g5, bishop g3, Ding played bishop g4 here. Very common sense move because you're pinning the knight, controlling d4 square. And in this position, Alireza played knight d2. And I should say that, like, Ding was thinking a lot in the opening. I mean, he knew that this is not going to be easy for him. Alireza is prepped up, and he was thinking like on every move around 15 to 20 minutes. G5, this bishop g4, he played quickly. But here, for example, again, bishop a7, he knew this position, he had experience, but again, he was thinking a lot. Already Alireza is up 30 minutes on the clock. So bishop b5 makes a lot of sense, pinning this knight. Again, going for d4 ideas, controlling d4, and I mean, you could always attack the bishop with h3 as well, but you can always do it. You don't want to show your card. Alireza pins the knight first, and after a short castle, Alireza plays rook to e1. So in this position, I think knight h5 was a better move, because I will show you why. Because after castle, Alireza could play pawn to h3 here. And now you should decide, where do you want to go with this bishop? If you go to h5, then you don't have knight h5 anymore. Because in this position, if the rook comes to e file, this queen actually is misplaced. This queen wants to be on another square like d7, f6 or g7, and this pawn wants to be open. The pawn wants to go f5 to break the center. And well, okay, whenever you play f5, you make the king weak, but that's the motive of such positions. And after h3, actually, if you come back to d7 here, and now there is no pressure on my knight, I can just play rook e1 and d4. So h3 was a better try. To not allow knight h5. Rook e1, actually Alireza played rook e1 here, and Ding, after a lot of 20 minutes kind of thought, he played knight h5. Very nice move, because it's multifunctional move, attacking the bishop. Knight is going to f4, queen is going to f6, everything is getting open, and even with the queen on f6, you're controlling d4 as well. And here Alireza played king h1. It's a mistake here, because king on h1 and rook on e1, they are not coordinated. In a lot of the lines earlier, king could go to h1 when knight h5 could have been played. But in this position is not good, because it's simply they are not coordinated, and after king h1, you just give all the time to black to regroup his pieces. For example, in this position, queen f6 was a very nice move. Always knight f4 is coming, controlling d4. Queen goes to g7, f5. And most importantly, there is no rook bothering it. There is no d4 anymore. And this could be very hard for white to play, because now, for example, this is one of the sample lines. I mean, white could continue like after bishop e6, bishop c4, and try to trade some pieces and equalize. Computer was saying bishop c8 even here to avoid captures or exchanges. But okay, Ding, also f5 was possible. Also f5 here was possible, like taking and queen g7, and d4 takes, queen b3, king h8, bishop d3. He probably didn't like this line as well. So he just played very normal move, knight g7, very natural. This knight is going probably to e6, controlling d4 and f4, probably f5 at some point. But at this in this position, I mean, you're not putting huge pressure on white anymore. And Alireza attacked the bishop and asked question, where do you want to go? Bishop h5 keeps the pin, and bishop to c4 here. Bishop to c4 is a very smart move, because if the knight moves, sometimes I can take on g5. The bishop on h5 is hanging and pins the pawn on f7 here, and a lot of ideas with queen b3 takes, attacking the pawn on b7, and sometimes queen b5, putting pressure on the queen side actually. So here Ding plays king h8, very natural move on pinning this pawn. And Alireza plays bishop d5. At first, I just didn't understand this move. I mean, why bringing this bishop from here to here? What's the difference? It's actually, there are a couple of differences. For example, he's stopping f5 ideas as well. If you play f5, I just take knight f5 and I take on c6. And now, tactics. Knight takes e5. The king, the geometry. The bishop is under attack. If you take my queen, I have knight g6 check. So this bishop d5 was very smart. Knight e6 again, as ideas of taking, and d4, queen b3. This bishop opens this way of attacking the b7 pawn. So Ding plays knight d8 here. I mean, the best move here was to play queen to d7 to go out of this line, making d4 harder and harder for white. Queen b3 was possible, just rook b8, and now d4. White should try all in because the king already got weak, and try this line. And let's see what happens. The computer said black is better, but practically it's not easy because this knight and king are not really comfortable. But Ding played knight d8, makes sense because he wants c6 and regroup his pieces. Also, another point with bishop here, that's whenever okay, we will see it, knight d8, like d4. Another point that Ding didn't really want to put a knight on e6 because, for example, after queen b3, you without the knight here, like knight e6 here, for example, queen b3, then you didn't have f6 after d4. I mean, black wants to face d4 in a lot of the lines if you don't want to fight with white and take on d4 with f6. And if you had a knight on a6, you couldn't really do it because the knight was hanging. So knight d8, d4, it just allows white to get d4. And at this point, as you can see the clocks, Alireza has 1 hour and Ding has around 40 minutes. And it gets like 2 more on time on the clock, 2 times more on the clock. And Alireza is speeding up here because he knows that he's not going to lose his advantage anyway. He has a very comfortable advantage center and he can dance around the center. Knight f1, going for knight e3, controlling on f5 and d5. But the problem is here in this position, Ding had a chance to take on d4. And if you take back knight c6, suddenly everything is getting forced. You gotta take, the pawn on d4 is hanging. Probably he didn't like the fact that his pawns are getting ruined, like rook c1. But actually computer was saying queen d7 and black is better here. You have 2 bishop, but okay. Practically, I could put pressure at this pawn, on this pawn knight e3. I mean, white's position is just very easy. And it was his last chance, kind of. He played pawn to c6, I mean, to try to get some advantage. And after bishop a2, knight to e6 here, and knight to e3, controlling this f5 square. And it was not his last chance. He get more chances after as well. Rook a d8 here. And this was like a handy move, like there was no purpose for it. Rook e8 was better because after rook d8, Alireza had the opportunity to go knight f5, and after takes knight g7, bishop h2 with the idea g4, and white gets a very nice position. If the rook was on e8, there was bishop f3, bishop takes f3, queen f3, and e4, but the rook is not here, and the e4 square is not guarded, so black cannot shut down the position. And this in this position, if you play this, I can, for example, go g4, bishop f7, king g2, exchange. At some point, I take on e5, put the knight on e4. This knight, I'm playing for this bad knight. But Alireza played knight to g4 instead of knight f5, just attacking this one. I didn't understand this move, but he's working on Ding's time, actually. Ding just guarded this pawn with king h7, very natural. And after bishop to b1, he already trusted his old calculation that bishop g4 is not working. But with the king on h7, it actually is completely much better for black. It's borderline winning. I mean, it's -1, still some work to do, because with the king on h7, h8, it doesn't work. I mean, if you go h5, I can just play knight g1, and there is no more attack. And this bishop is really, really important positionally. All the white squares get weak. So if you want to take this knight, you should have a concrete answer. If you don't have a huge attack, I don't even care about central pawn. Even I just because all the white squares are weak. So, and you don't have any attack to my king. But with the king on h7, now you can take and go rook h8 or h5. This rook h8, king g6 or king g8, and doubling up on the h file, and this could be very dangerous for white, for example, like this, and trying to double up on the h file. But okay, he trusted his old calculation, and he thought there is no difference, and he just played bishop to g6, queen to d2, and knight f4 here. I mean, the position is getting harder and harder for black. Computer wanted some slow moves, but I mean, until when? You have 30 minutes against 1 hour, and I mean, white can do whatever, and still better. Knight f4, and in this position Alireza played a very nice practical move, because Ding thought for 10 minutes, 20 minutes, 10 to 20 minutes on this move, and Alireza just played bishop c2 quickly, because again he has to think more about the nuances of this position. I mean, computer wanted to take on f4 with crazy lines. Of course, if you take with this g pawn, I have knight h4, this knight gets wild. I mean, I just want to harass this bishop, and if you take with this, I have e5. And if in this position you take on b1, I can take on f6, and if you take here, I have this, and queen c2, and then take on e5 with huge attack on the king. Sometimes also I have this knight h4 idea, because if you take queen f4 and your king is in trouble, like king h8, here e5. So, but Alireza didn't want any of that. He just played bishop c2, forced Ding to think even more, even 10 minutes more. He has 18 minutes on the clock. He thought for 10 other minutes, and he played queen e6. Again, I mean, he could play knight g to e6, try to improve his position, but again, I could just come back with the knight slowly. I mean, it's not clear how. I mean, you can never get to d5. No captures until here. Pay attention to that as well. So we're on move 25. He played queen e6 because his idea was kind of after bishop f4, here e5. Now you can just take on e5, because take queen c2, there is queen f5. That was his idea. But okay, Alireza didn't take on f4, and he just played rook d1 again, just keeping the ball in his court. h5, knight h2 by Alireza. He didn't want to allow this knight h3, takes on h4. You don't want to allow that when your opponent is low on time. Knight h2, queen to f7, very good move, freeing up this e6 square. Knight to f1, and we are on move 28. Knight f to e6, knight to e3. It's move 29, ladies and gentlemen. It happens very rarely that until here we don't have any capture. And Ding Liren in this position has 3 minutes, Alireza 36 minutes, and finally he cracks here. He is just fed up, and he throws the towel here, takes on d4, and gives up and surrenders the center finally. I mean, computers wanted, giving white advantage like half a pawn, any moves like king h8, rook f8. I mean, white can just wait, improve his position, and black should wait whenever the knight comes here, calculate all of this stuff with d5, which was not easy at all. Taking on d5, bishop takes f5, there's this. With 3 minutes, it was kind of, and here only move queen g6. So yeah, he just blunders here and takes on d4. He takes on d4. Alireza takes back. In this position, whatever you do, it's white is just winning here. a5 is hanging, b4 is coming, d6 is weakness. That's why he plays d5 to cure his weakness, but he just blundered this pawn actually. Suddenly this queen is eyeing to this pawn. We exchange the bishops first and take this, and attacking the bishop. The bishop doesn't have a square, bishop b8, and it leads to another pawn as well. Knight f4, queen b5, stopping knight d3 ideas. g4, tries his chance. Maybe something happens on the h file, but Alireza doesn't allow it. Rook is coming to e7, disconnects the queen. And Ding at this point, he was just fed up, and he was just playing so fast, and he resigned after 43 moves. Great opening prep by Alireza, great opening choice, keeping the pieces on the board until Ding Liren drained out. He tired him in this game like a boxing match, like going to until the move 30 without any captures, making him tired and more tired and tired, putting a lot of pressure on even the drop of water on rocks make a hole on it after a long time. So that was a great strategy. With this huge win, Alireza leads the tournament with 5 points out of 7. Sole leader, 1 point difference from second place, going to next round against Jan Nepomniachtchi tonight with the black pieces. and let's see what happens. Thank you guys for watching. If you liked my recap, make sure to like the video, comment, and subscribe. And thank you already for 500 subscribers. Let's reach to 1,000 subscribers. Thank you guys for watching. Have a great one, everybody. See you in next videos. Ciao, ciao.